guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. And if you're visiting my channel for the first time, me and my husband Chris take thrifted find items and give them new life. So on our channel, we share the process of what our vision is for these thrifted items, and we get them ready to resell here locally in an antique mall. But we love to share the process with you in case that you are another thrifter, flipper, or somebody who is just looking to do this with items in their own home. So in today's video, this is kind of a wall decor. When I'm out thrifting, I just look at everything. I don't really have a item that I leave unnoticed. So when I'm doing groups of items to get them ready to resell, I'm kind of grouping them all together. So in this video, this is some wall decor. It's kind of all over the place, but the similarity is that they're metal or resin, and they're items that I'm going to be spray painting. So I am going to share with you what I do to these items to get them ready.
So in this video, these are objects, these are wall decor pieces that I am going to be sharing with you my vision of how I am going to be turning these into resellable items in the Ginger Chick style. Though some of these you have seen in a thrift haul video or a thrift with me, some of these items you have not. Sometimes some items just kind of get set off to the side in our garage in my to-do pile. I try to get items done as soon as I can when I bring them home, or your house would just runneth over with thrifted items. So I'm on to making over all this wall decor. I love to do the round robin way of doing items to get the most stock built up. And I could not believe that this item was brand new. I don't know if somebody got it for a Christmas present and they didn't want it, but I was happy to make a brand new piece over. And along with this welcome sign, I don't know if this was brand new, but this is a very new piece also. I don't know, was it the colors? I will never get sad of painting black and white because I know that is what sells, and I really don't see a lot of black and white out in the thrift stores to rebuy, so I feel good about it. And I absolutely love when I run across more of these tiles. They just paint up so beautiful. So I just do a happy dance when I see these in the thrift store. And the price tag was wonderful for the two of these. And can I tell you my excitement when I found these big metal pieces? When I first picked it up, I thought it was just going to be one, but it was two, and they were taped together. And no, a $10.09 price tag is not bad for these at all. I don't know if you all get tired of hearing me say time to clean these items, but I treat every video as if it's the first time somebody is watching our channel. And so yes, these are thrifted, these are found items. Even if you're repainting in your own home, you need to get them properly prepped. And today I am using the Super Clean in some hot water and just getting these all wiped off. I like a product that I don't have to rinse, and this is one of them. I can just wipe it on, get it cleaned off, and then while I'm cleaning, I'm removing any price tag, any store stickers, any little felt bumps out. These are now in the Ginger Chick Rehab hands, and now that's what they're going to become. They are no longer a Hobby Lobby piece, or no longer whatever the store tag was, and definitely do not paint over a price tag. So one of the things I do when I am assessing pieces, when I'm grouping them together, so all these pieces are pieces that I know that I can spray with a spray paint, this Rust-Oleum, a flat black. They're metal, they're a resin, or they have some metal on it, and that's just the best adhesion. And for this little flower, I know part of it is that MDF board, that particle board, but a good portion of it is metal also. So when I'm assessing and I'm grouping items together, that's what I try to do. I try to think, okay, so what is this piece? How am I looking at this? It's just easier to group everything that I have together, that I had thrifted, that I know I'm going to be using the similar paint technique on. So that's why I share with you. I share with you not only my vision for what each piece it will become, but if you are somebody that's trying to stock a booth or a reseller, this is just that type of round robin game I'm talking about, where I just group a whole bunch of items together, every item I have, and then I break it down into sections. And these are the ones that are getting spray painted with Rust-Oleum first. So when I was cleaning this piece and then getting ready to spray it, I'm like, hey, somebody attached some little hangers. If I can't help it, I'm going to try to take these hangers off. I don't like when you see the wire hanging above the piece, and how they had this on they had applied these hangers. When you put a piece of wire, that's what you do. You would see in the hanging system from the back and the front when it was hanging. So they had actually glued them on, and so I'm taking them off before I get it spray painted. It was nice that they hung them on, but I'm going to try to flip them upside down to see if I can hide that hanging system. And on some of these pieces, if the backs look okay and they're not an odd color that is going to stand out that you painted this piece, I may leave them alone by taping off the edges. But I was definitely excited to get this piece. I did not have to flip this one over and do the back. It was just white, so I am just spray painting the front of this big, nice metal welcome sign. And yes, if you are new to our channel, this is something I do with my husband, Chris. I do the smaller items like this, and then he usually does a lot of the furniture items, but we help each other out where we can. And yep, I paint everything. That is part of what I do. My thrift lips is I paint everything. Well, pretty much everything. And it's all black and white. I get that comment, do you paint anything other than black and white? Nope, I don't. This is just what works for me. It sells for me. I love how it makes my retail booths look. But yep, black and white it is. And most of the time, most of the items do get a undercoat of black. And this is a spray room that we have built when we built our workshop. The workshop's not very old. We built it for our needs, and having a spray room is such a blessing here in Michigan winters to be able to have a ventilation system hooked up in an area where you can spray paint all year long. And if I can suggest anything to anybody that's flipping small items, thrift yourself a turntable. Look how helpful this is, especially on this massive piece of metal wall decor. Being able to spin this and get all those angles, it is such a nice thing to have. So before flipping these pieces over and doing the other side, I like to seal that paint in. Yep, Rust-Oleum paint primer is a wonderful spray paint, but it does not have a protective coating on it. So before flipping these pieces over, I use Polycrylic as a top coat, and then this is going to prevent it from marring up when I flip these pieces over. That way that black Rust-Oleum spray paint isn't accidentally getting scratched off. And though I spray paint these in the spray room, I don't feel the need to take these into the spray room. You see I have them on a board so I can carry them if need be. Just the way that this Polycrylic sprays out, it's a finer mist, so it is just, it doesn't overspray like a spray can. I'm not getting a whole bunch of spray all over the place. So I just leave them right where they were. I'm not covering it. I'm just covering to get a protective coat on. I'm not covering it solid to cover every little piece of what was previous there like you do on a spray paint. But I have the back of my pieces all sprayed up and Polycrylic protected so I can flip these over. I like to use pieces of wood because I find a lot of times if I just try to use a piece of paper, that sometimes that paper, when it runs down the sides, not like drips, but just it adheres to the paper and then rips off. So I love using these pieces of boards that we cut. So now it's on to spray painting the front of these pieces black. So if you're all wondering, why isn't she carrying them back into the workshop? Well, now that they've all been already spray painted, it's minimal coverage on this next coat. I've gotten a lot of that surface area covered already. They're on the boards. I don't want to accidentally have them scraping that back as I'm moving them in and out, because even though it's painted and that paint is set up, it's not what you call cured. It could be dry to the touch, but not cured. So I don't want to take a chance of walking over and having them scrape against the boards that I have them on. So this is just what works for me. Y'all do what works for you. So now I'm just finishing up getting their rest of their coating of black on them. So now that I'm moving on to my white color, I'm showing you where I have taped off these items. I don't want that paint running down the side and underneath as it's pulling up against that piece of wood. So I tape them off. It's just what works for me. I don't want a messy backside. And then for this one, where I spray painted it, as you see, it didn't get that little white edge. So I'm going back through and using some ink, Waverly chalk paint. It actually matches that Rust-Oleum flat black perfectly. For this resin piece, this is kind of an odd piece, and I don't really want to spend the time having to paint the back side of this white. So I have realized that I can use this contact paper, put it on the whole back side, rub it on nice and tight. I have not had any problem with it removing my paint. I just make sure that it's good in on there. Yep, I might have to touch up a little piece here and there just because it's such an odd shape, but I do love using this contact paper to protect some of my pieces. It's just the Duck brand that I get at Walmart, and I actually use it all the time for my transfer tape. For this flower piece, for whatever reason, the contact paper would not stick, so I did end up having to use masking tape to tape it off. I don't know why. Apparently it just did not want to stick to that type of material. The other nice thing about having my items on these boards is that, yep, there you go, another thrifted Lazy Susan turntable, whatever you want to call it. So that way when I am painting these objects, I'm moving on to the Waverly chalk paint in white. That way I can spin these around, not touch the item, they're on a piece of board, and I can get that 360 paint job on all these items. I'm actually liking the Waverly chalk paint for my metal items. Why I like it is because when I go to distress these metal pieces, why I undercoated them in black is I like to distress. I like to bring out all these details in these metal pieces. And the chalk paint can be water distressed. So when I'm using sandpaper, sometimes you really have to go really, really lightly, really, really gingerly with a sandpaper on a metal piece. And a lot of times I don't want to see that color from underneath. So I have learned that this chalk paint, when I water distress it and I sealed that Rust-Oleum paint in with that polycrylic, I'm just going down to my black. I'm just getting those details that I want. Unlike when I do wooden pieces, I want some of that wood and some of that previous color to show through. So it's just a different way and a different finished look that you're looking for. So I am liking the Waverly chalk paint, though I find that this is my second bottle of Waverly chalk paint, and every little bottle you open is a little bit different than the next. And this seemed to be a little bit drier. So right off the get-go, I needed to start adding water to it. Usually you go do that onto your second coat, I found when I did that, but it is what it is. You're not picky in these times of what paint you get. And yep, I did the exact same thing with that contact paper on the birds. I am hopefully that Chris will be able to put some palette wood in these. I still don't want a messy backside just in case it's any of the area that you might see. So luckily the contact paper did stick to this metal piece, and now I can go in and paint it. I absolutely am so excited for what this might look like at the end. When it comes to this flower piece, I don't want to completely cover up that metal. I want to leave a lot of that black, but I know it is not an easy job to go underneath each of these petals. So I should explain the brush. The brush I'm using is one that I got at Walmart. There's that chalk paint, and there's a package of brushes, and they are white in color, and they're really, really soft. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get underneath these petals. I don't want to bend that metal back and forth and chance trying to break it off. So some of these petals I'm going to be painting, and other ones I'm just going to be touching, just the tips of them, just like it's feathering in, just how God makes those flowers and just makes that unique little center of that flower. So that is what I'm going for here. And I don't know about you all, but to me, it is just so relaxing to paint. I don't know what you all think, but we absolutely, me and my husband Chris, just absolutely love painting. Yep, it would be easy to get a sprayer out and just start mass producing a whole bunch of pieces to get them in a booth. But I just love that TLC, that tender loving care of each individual piece that we do. And for these two signs, yep, I'm just painting that entire thing white. Just going over it with that Waverly chalk paint and getting the entire surface area of the front of this piece white. And then when I go back in to distress it, or if I need to paint those letters, I will. But for right now, it's just all going to be white. So how would you have all tackled these? I know there's a lot of little swirlies. It's one of those, yeah, it's large, it's metal. How do you get this way and that way and not have it pool up? And I know it would probably been easier to take a can of spray paint and spray these. But like I said, I definitely do not want to get down to that blue color that it really was by having to sand it. And I know that they sell that chalk paint in a spray paint. Are you all a fan of that? Because I find that though it's probably good for a good project or a different project than this, since I want to distress this piece and see some of that black, I've used it a couple times and I'm like, I can't even sand it. Holy cow, it is on there to say. So I see reasons why to use it, but for this, it was not a reason for me to use it. So now I'm just sharing with you, if you are new to chalk paint like I was, all my viewers helped me learn how to use chalk paint, a little bit more needy than just opening a can of paint. So definitely into my second coat, even though I did water down my first coat just a wee bit, just because the bottle was a little bit more thicker. You just have to judge what is workable for you. So I'm just putting in a little bowl, mixing a little bit of water in it until it's the consistency for me. I do like how the second coat definitely goes on. It's a smoother coverage. And then I did switch over to this type of brush, hoping that this would give a little bit more coverage, get in all those little grooves just a little bit more. Yep, this is one of those, I'm probably not going to make the money back. I'm going to make money on this item, but I'm not going to make money on time spent on this item. When it comes to flipping, a lot of times, yeah, nope. Maybe on furniture, you can get your money back on time spent, but on little items, not really. And this is where I just want to share with you, there's a lot of belief out there that chalk paints are one coat or two coat coverage, but remember, I paint white, so white is always, if you're lucky, you get a two coat coverage, but a lot of times, yep, you do have to go back places or the entire object and do a third coat. I'm sure there's plenty of other colors that are a 1 to 2 coat coverage, but white, it's always more needy. So now after getting whatever many coats it took to cover your items, I know just because I'm distressing it, it doesn't mean you can cheap out or take shortcuts on getting your item covered. Yes, I know that some of this will be rubbed off when I'm water distressing it, but that's okay. You want to have a quality product. You want to make sure that you've gotten all your pieces and parts covered before moving on to distressing the piece. And so what I like to use is a little bit of drop cloth. I reupholster and have drop cloth clippings all the time from items. So I take the pieces and parts and we use it for things like this. Is a little bit thicker material, so it's going to help kind of be more abrasive to rubbing off this chalk paint. That's what I mean. That's why I like the chalk paint, that way that I don't necessarily have to use a sandpaper. But for some reason on this bottle, yep, I did. I had to go back in with a really fine grit of sandpaper, very gingerly, while the item was wet. I found that while I wetted that chalk paint a little bit, I wasn't tending to go down to the metal of the piece. Wetting it, putting this is a 300 grit sandpaper, it was just helping me remove. For whatever reason, I was having a hard time water distressing this bottle of paint. So when it comes to these signs, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to smooth out that paint in case there's any raised brush marks. I wanted some smoothness. But as I went in and I started to do that, I kind of liked how the sandpaper, because yep, it was not just water distressing off, kind of bumped on the letters. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to go in and see if I can distress these letters to have the letters coming through. And if I don't like it, my plan was at the beginning to go back in and paint the letters black. But I kind of was liking this. Remember, it's just paint. If you don't like it, paint it something else. So am I the only one that had to distress a piece like this? Like I said, this is only my second bottle of chalk paint that I've been using. I used it early on in my flipping career and found it way too needy, but I didn't know I could add water to it back then. So we went through a bottle. I really liked it. I loved how it water distressed, but now I'm like, second bottle, got a sand and then water distress. Is this common for you chalk paint users? Please let me know. I didn't mind doing it once I figured out that I could do this with the 300 grit. I definitely wouldn't want to go anything higher than that because I definitely did not want to go back down to my metal. So for this flower piece, I just went in. Yep, I had to wet that little metal piece first. Then I sanded the edges of the flower petal and then went in where that little veining, that little stem would have been. That's just what I visioned of how a flower flows. Then for all my pieces that I had to tape off that back, I do go in, I take the tape, the contact paper off, I sand off that rough edge up where that paint pulls up, it leaves that hard, crusty edge, and then I assess if I need to touch up any of the backs. So yeah, some of these pieces needed to be flipped. I didn't have too many, but these little leaves and that big wrought iron and the little resin piece both needed to be flipped over. So yep, just how pieces run. Yep, they all can be spray painted. Some of them only need one side, but some of them need to do the two side. There's every item that you thrift is a little bit needier than the next. At least I feel like I'm winding down on these pieces. So I like the way that this piece distressed. I feel no need to go back in and paint those letter black. I just think it looks like one of those aged metal signs that have been out in the weather for years and the paint actually has come off and has just left that base. So I'm just sealing it in with some Varathane finishing wax. Like I said, I liked the way that this looked, and all the pieces will be getting this Varathane finishing wax that just seals that chalk paint in. As you know, you need to seal your chalk paint in. And then I do go back in with a fine mist of the polycrylic just to make sure that all these pieces and parts, all that chalk paint is sealed in, that paint is sealed in. Probably the OCD in me, I probably could have stopped at the wax. But one more level of protection. Like I said, this polycrylic in the spray goes a long way. So can I share with you the struggles of these leaves? Though I thought they were a neat piece, I got them distressed, I didn't like it. So now I'm like, maybe if I antique it a little bit. So I watered down some of the antiquing wax. Nope, I didn't like that either. Then I did have some of this mineral chalk paint on hand, and I thought, okay, well, I've seen other people say that this has a cement look. So I'm like, okay. So I got it out, started painting it. I'm like, that's tan to me. That does not look cement. I'm sure every bottle is a little bit different. So nope, I didn't like that either. Okay, so I have to admit, one sleep later, I'm like, okay, I remember my daughter back in her fair days. She had done a Hosta Leaf cement piece. What if I can make this look like cement? I know that mineral paint did not quite look as cementy as I wanted it to. So then I tried to mix up what I considered to be a cement. I already had poured out that mineral paint, and I had put that in a bag overnight while I'm thinking. And so now I did a little bit of black, probably too much black. So now I got ahead a whole bunch of white. Do you all do this in the middle of a project? You know, you have a vision for it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I do not like it. If I ever, you know what I say, do a project until you love it. And I had not been loving those leaves yet. So while that paint is drying, I go over and I'm going to be putting back on these hanging systems. And so, like I said, I'm going to flip them 180. They were going upwards. I want them to go down. So when I put that wire on, you don't see that wire hanging from the back. So how many sleeps does it take me to come up with how to finish these two leaves? So now I'm on to trying to make a textured paint. I still wasn't in love with it just being cement. So, yep, I'm using sawdust in this paint mixture. Why not? You can use baking soda, you can use plaster of Paris. Neither of those two items I have a lot of, so we always have sawdust in the workshop. So yep, that's what I added to this paint. So I'm just going on with this type of brush and just adding texture. Is this traditional? Probably not, but I wasn't loving it. At one point I was like, you know what? These have done its time. I'm going to redonate them, but I'm like, I'm not going to let this project win. I bought you. I had a vision for you. I am going to achieve a look that I love. And here was one of the other problems, that it ended up having drips. No matter how hard I tried, from having to do the back side of this piece, I had drips that ran over to the front. So I wasn't able to sand those off without going all the way down to the metal and making a hole. That's another reason this texture paint would hide those, blend it all in. And so now that I have the texture dried really fast with that sawdust in it. So now I'm just going in and I'm making a variation of cement look. So I'm taking a little bit of that white, a little bit of that. I didn't like the mineral. I like that antiquing wax. I had done a little resin piece and made it look kind of cementy. So this is why I went back to adding the antiquing wax. And so now I'm just going in and I'm doing that Bob Ross of Happy Little Trees technique, just blending things in until I am in love with it. Yep, this probably is not going to be one of those pieces that, yet again, you're going to make a ton of money on, but at least I know as long as I'm happy with it, I'll be happy to resell it. Probably why it makes it nice to be able to do multiple pieces that you can just walk away from that piece and let it dry and see what it's going to become later. So Chris was able to cut some pallet wood down and we were able to fit it in behind these birds. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. But I do not love the color of the pallet wood behind these birds. and I had actually used a little bit of ink and a little bit of water on a coffee sack that I had framed for our booth. I did not do a video on that. It was just a technique that I was trying out for myself because I wanted that frame to go with the black on that coffee sack. So you know what? I thought I loved it on that, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this as a stain, and I'm going to stain these little palette wood pieces. I want them to pop behind that bird a little bit more. And then I didn't really want to go over, I didn't want them to turn black, so I didn't mind watering it down, but I did want them to be a little bit darker, so I did end up doing 2 coats, but that's what the original palette wood looks like. And this is what the palette wood looks like with 1 coat of the Waverly chalk paint and ink watered down, and I'm going to add a 2nd coat. I feel it's a little bit, especially with stain, to add more on, then you can't take it off so easily. So now I'm definitely not going to try to wax these on right now. I'm going to spray that paint all in with some polycrylic. So for these black stars, I am just leaving them black. I am not distressing them. I'm just going to seal that black paint in. I already put some polycrylic on it, and now I'm just going to antique wax it. I'm obsessed with doing it, so I do it on almost every one of my black items. I just love how it gives one more extra layer of protection to the paint, and I just absolutely love how it richens up that black paint. So I do absolutely love how this textured paint with sawdust worked out. I love how my colors are all blending. It's a little bit on the rough texture side, even though I did 2 layers of the polycrylic spray. I'm going to go in with some of this Waverly white wax, and I'm hoping that that's going to tone. I don't mind that it lightens it up a little bit, but I just want it to soften. I can't even imagine these pieces anymore as that metal leaf that it was. And I guess they were supposed to hang on the wall, but I think they are just nice decor, sit on your table, and I think they actually could go outside. I'm in love with how these turned out now. Like I said, just do an item until you love it. And yes, I do. I love that white wax on this. So in this video, I used a Titebond glue to glue this to metal. I don't know what I was thinking, because of course, Titebond glue is wood on wood, so it did not stick. So even though I am showing you the process of me doing this, I totally recommend E6000. Yep, I had to re-glue the whole thing because as soon as I lifted it up, all those pieces came loose. Sometimes you think and then you think some more after it didn't work.
So I thank you so much for watching today's video, and what was your favorite? I always love hearing from you. I try to get to everybody's comment, and so I thank you again for watching today's video. And if you are part of my YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you like this kind of content and you enjoyed it, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video.